My name is Madeleine Zook. I have been a franchisor twice. My husband and I, who's in the back, we own franchisees of four different brands in the Philadelphia area, upwards of like 50. We have territory franchisees. And then this is Denise.
Hi, everyone. I am a Sonic franchisee. I actually grew up in the restaurant business. My dad was one of the largest Burger King franchisees back in the 80s. So it's been running in our blood for a long time. And he roped me into joining him after college, which I probably curse him and love him for daily. So I've been in the Sonic business or the franchising business for about 22 years now, and we've kind of seen the ups and downs between our different concepts between our family business. Sonic's, Burger King's, Corner Bakery, Denny's, Del Taco. So we're now newly franchising Buffalo Wild Wings Go.
So before we start, so we can kind of tailor what we're talking to, how many of you in here represent franchise brands? Okay. And then how many of you are in like a CTO, CIO, infrastructure role? And then what about ops? Lone soldier. And then any marketing? Cool. Well, I'm here to shake it up then, baby. Okay, so I think that what the takeaway we want you to take to really dig into today is we understand that you guys are in your seats for a reason. You know you're going to build your tech infrastructure. You know what you need. You can walk into the room next door and probably find 5 more technologies that's going to grow your business. But at the end of the day, how do you get that to increase your AUV? And that's getting your tech infrastructure to your people in a way that matters. So how do we do that? It's getting it in the hands of your general managers. It's getting it in the hands of your franchisees and their employees. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do that, and that's what we're going to explore today. First, we want to start off with where we are. So this isn't news to anyone in the room, but I think that it's important you see it in a graph form of overall traffic and overall ticket size is not spiking by any means. If anything, it's continuing to decline. So that means that the focus on net new, we continuously need net new customers. At some point, it's just going to continue to decline because you're fighting a downward battle. I obviously work in mostly on the marketing side, and what we're finding is that it doesn't matter your digital agency, your budget for marketing, inwards or internal or external. The consumer trends and your expectations of what you should get are simply not aligning, and it's setting restaurants up to fail. So what we want to focus on is how do we cultivate a better experience with the customers we already have? And that's including bigger bill size and more frequency. And then for the non-QSR, here's another slide. So again, how do we make sure that we can continue making money and cutting costs when the trends are up against us? So here's what we're gonna dig into today. I think the biggest thing, and it's not news to anyone, is mobility, seamless operations anywhere. That means that you're not tied down to desktops or cash registers, and being able to have your employees and your customers access your, whether it's front, middle, or back of the house as easily and as quickly as possible. So Denise, can you tell me a little bit about how you were using the Starbucks across the street to get Wi-Fi at some point?
Yes, I mean, I think a lot of you probably know in the last few years, as we've started to see people hacking into our systems and having to build more security into them. When we actually first opened up our Sonics back in 2001, 2003, we had our credit card machine, our server, just kind of sitting out. And then one day, somebody came in the middle of the night and stole just the credit card server. They did not take any money or anything. They just stole the server. So it was from that point on that we started to cage those up. So I think as we're moving forward, we started to build in more security with firewalls, but then back into our restaurants, we had to start doing training on tablets and on desktops that we could not get through the firewall that was provided by our franchisor. So we have to kind of pivot and say, okay, do we need an iPad on a Wi-Fi? Do we need to use a T-Mobile or another carrier to satisfy that? Because we actually were sending our employees across the street with our training tablet to Starbucks and saying, here, go over there for an hour and do this training and come back and show us what you did.
So just an example of, if you're not going to make it easy for your employees to work for you, they're not going to make it easy for customers to want to order from you. And in that is definitely, to my guy over here, Mr. Operations, how does that work when, for instance, Denise or a lot of you in the room, you've got multiple restaurants in multiple states, sometimes in multiple countries. And if your operations are requiring you to physically be in the office or, the restaurant, or, having your top level GMs, go to all of these restaurants, what is the cost savings there? What is the expense there? So you need to be able to have remote access. And what does that mean for you? So how do you manage that for you, Denise?
Well, I think one of the big things that came out of COVID for us was, I have multiple district managers, director of operations, and we have stores lining California all the way up to the Central Valley and back down to Los Angeles. And at that point, we didn't want our district managers that usually go store to store spreading COVID amongst all our different stores. So at that point, we thought, this is a great time to upgrade our security cameras. That way we were, our managers were actually sitting outside in the parking lot and calling from the outside and looking at things through their phones and being able to converse with our people from outside of that, from without having to be inside. So that was one of the learnings that came out of COVID. And now that we're kind of past that, it's nice to have the infrastructure in there. To the point where we can, hear and listen to see what's going on. So we don't have to be at 10 places at the same time.
Yeah. And I know a lot of you are probably rolling your eyes like, all right, ladies, like this is not rocket science, but this is what your restaurants are dealing with every day. Like the down to the simple wire where I know you can walk into that vendor room and see, if I do this, I can 2x my business, I can 3x my business. But all of that is a moot point unless you've taken care of the foundation, that's going to set your technology up for success. And that leads us to, that automation of empowering efficiency over labor. I know cutting costs and labor costs is a big deal. Denise in California is about to go to $20 minimum wage. So I encourage you to really take a step, I don't want to say back, but down into your restaurants where how are they managing, waste management, or how much food are you wasting after a shift? What's your menu optimization look like? Sometimes, and a lot of times, your employees might find it's just easier to do it on pen and paper, and then they're passing it around, or maybe they're keeping it on a non-automated spreadsheet, or they're tracking it on just their personal phone. What does that look like? Is there something that can replace that? And Denise, you have a good story about the little red book about with your waste management.
We do. We have we were actually still currently using a very large spiral notebook. That's our red book. That has a day for every single day of the month, and then at the end of the month, I get 10 giant spiral notebooks that come back to my office, and they go directly into storage for the next 7 years because they have, our break, the sign-outs for the break, the food safety, the inventory, the schedule, all in there. And so we recently tried to go over and try to get everything over onto an iPad, which we've been testing, and getting all of that onto one place that's going to now live in the cloud. That we can access at any time has been huge, just efficiency-wise and storage-wise. And at one point we thought this is going to cost us more money to go digital, and it's actually costing us less because we're not having all the shipping costs, the storage costs for all these books that are coming back.
So again, she's part of Inspire Brands, which is one of the biggest conglomerates of restaurant franchises in the world, and they were using red spiral notebooks. So again, what in each of your businesses, from bottom line operations, what are the layers in there that technology can solve? And there's not going to be a one size fits all. There's not going to be this one magic silver bullet that you can come in and all of a sudden your tech has raised, your AI has raised. It's going to start with the little things, such as the red spiral notebook instance, in order for you to start implementing that cool, fancy stuff that you see on the news with McDonald's, no people in the restaurants, and it's all run with robots. Yes, I've been to one, and I waited 45 minutes for my chicken nuggets, so not ideal. And then how does that relay into recruiting and training processes? You have to meet people where they are. Do you think that somebody is going to come in to your stores or your restaurants and want to apply on pen and paper? Are they going to come in and fill that out and stay? Or are they going to dip halfway through? Or if you give them a very nice working iPad and it makes the process seamless, more seamless, is that a better experience for them? So we're going to dig into that more. And then, of course, boosted retention rates and customer lifetime value. Don't make it hard for people to order with you. How many people have gone through a Chick-fil-A line, and when you've got the double drive-through and they come to your window with their little machine and your order's ready, that's fabulous. How much revenue would they have lost if they had one drive-through line and the line was, it was a traditional drive-through? So how can we make it as easy as possible for people to order with you? Again, meeting people where they are. So, that was where technology needs to go now. So let's talk about the impact it's going to have. So I think a lot of times when you look at technology, you think that's going to be a big fucking cost. Like, you're like, I'm not pushing that past our executives in any way, shape, or form. But what we want to look at is if you're producing something from the top level, breaking it down by every step. So how long until it pays off for itself? And Denise, you have a good example of this because you started implementing the iPads and were worried about the costs right up front. And so how did that work out for you?
Right. I think, especially with restaurants and nowadays, we're really pinching our pennies, right? I yell at the car hops for giving out a handful of ketchup because it's, each ketchup packet is 1 penny, and they think it's just 1 penny. And I think, well, at the end of the month, that 1 penny is maybe like a $50 case of ketchup. So let's save where we can. So we were worried about investing in technology and how that's going to pay off. But because I am in Sue Happy, California, I can tell you that it's really more of it's saving me money in terms of, a lot of times we're doing schedules. The managers are doing their schedules or checking their texts on their own personal phone. And then finally a manager came over and said, hey, this is I'm doing work on my own personal phone. So you should be paying for my phone plan. A lot of the things that we do in terms of like breaks, in California, we have to take our 10-minute break within the 4 hours, but the employees get paid while they're on their 10-minute break. So they can't clock in and out because then in our office side, we've got to add the 10 minutes back in. But we also have to make sure that there is some kind of evidence that they took their break because eventually someone will sue us for not having taken their breaks. So when we have implemented the technology now, it lives on an iPad in the store. It is company issued and owned. Anything that we need to save is on there, and that lives in the cloud. And so we are able to kind of control all of the data that goes out to the employees, and also make sure that everything is on the up and up and legal.
Yeah. So we're not only talking about cost savings when it comes to like food waste and clocking in and clocking out, but now you're saving across departments, your Sue Happy employees, things of that nature. I talked to a restaurant the other day and they had taken out a co-working space just so their managers had a place to meet that was outside. And so now they implemented a lot of the tech, the iPads, and the FaceTime and Zoom, and they were able to cut those costs completely, which might not go into your bottom line tech, but it certainly is a cost savings that you can then use to push forward later. And this also goes to kind of the other side of the screen of cost savings when it comes to employment and recruiting. Familiarity. So employees already know this technology. So training is a huge part, a huge cost of your restaurant business. And a lot of times we're not taking into account the fact that they already know how to use the tech. You're training them on the specific systems. So what does that mean when a new employee comes in? They know how to use an iPad. They know how to use an iPhone. They might not know how to use this, outdated technology computer or cashier or software system that you've had for years. What is that time and delta in I would say intellectual capital costing you?
They definitely do not know how to use Excel.
Yeah.
I think most of my employees are Gen Z, and so they all use Google Sheets. But I am old, and so I use Excel. So when a scheduling app is on an iPad and they can pinch it and move shifts around, it's a lot easier.
And it's the same thing with employee preference. When it comes to our restaurant employees, and one of the brands I own is actually in home services, so we see this as well. They enjoy having technology that they might not have outside of the office. So if you're walking in and they say, "Oh, I can work at this restaurant A," and I kind of checked it out, they gave me, maybe a screen with a broken or a tablet with a broken screen, and it's kind of dirty, doesn't look like it works great. Or they walk into restaurant B and they've got new technology, it's seamless, it's great. Where do you think they're going to want to work? Where do you think they're going to want to stay? And that goes for every single day, every person that touches your operations. If you're not making it easy and enjoyable for them to work for you, it's not just, hey, it works, I don't want to replace it because it costs money. You're probably costing yourself more, and people just being like, this place sucks. I can't do my job. I can't do what I need to do when I need to do it. So, how much does that save you in employee preference of being somewhere that people want to work and feel like they're supported in doing their job, no matter what their job is? And then we can head over to enhanced data accuracy and accountability. I don't need to explain to you guys that it all goes down to every single data point. Every single data point matters when you're putting in your tech, you're putting in your infrastructure. And the problem is that a lot of times your GMs and your operators and your employees, they don't have time and they don't care. How do you make them care? You can't. There's nobody in here that you can say, oh, we've got these employees and they care about my business just as much as the owner, just as much as corporate. So you want to make it as easy as possible for them to put in the data that matters, especially when you're, again, meeting them where they are on a level of they just don't care as much. They to be honest, employees think that we're all at corporate making millions of dollars and choosing not to pay them very much. They do not have a good grasp of the numbers and the balance sheet. So again, why should they care? They don't have full transparency into how it all works. So the simpler you can make it for them to put in correct data for someone who, quite frankly, probably doesn't care as much as you, is important when you're trying to make decisions and get correct data and just getting it at all. And then, lastly, I said it again, meeting customers where they are saves marketing dollars. If I am on, I am a loyal fan of whatever restaurant A, but I've got 3 kids, 7, 5, and 1. And there's times my husband's back there, I'm not leaving the damn house. Like, you couldn't pay me enough to go to a restaurant. I'm going to order online. But if the restaurant I love is not capable of taking delivery, to go, online orders, I'd love to go there, but I'm not leaving the house. So are you making sure that you're meeting them where they are? This is not rocket science, people. And I know some people are sitting here rolling their eyes, but again, can you look at yourself, look at your restaurants and say, yes, I've managed every single part of this. That's what makes us streamlined. That's why we're here. Probably not. Are you making it easy for your employees to work for you and for your customers to order from you more frequently and at a bigger ticket size. Because quite frankly, sometimes I'll be like 5 beers deep and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll add the cookie, I'll add the dinner plate. Like you need to make it exciting for them and easy for them and a part of their everyday routine. And that's what tech is going to allow.
I think I have to say, as I walked around yesterday at the exhibit hall, just to say thank you to the developers out there that are, a step ahead of us. When we first started doing third-party deliveries in our stores, we had at one point, I think 4 or 5 tablets lined up along the window. And we'd take the order, and we would key it in on our own by hand, and then it'd come out it'd come out, and eventually someone would show up and pick it up. And then about 6 months into it, then all these other new services would pop up and say, oh, you can put that all on one tablet, and it'll go directly into your POS, and it'll be printed. So we're definitely, I think restaurant operators are looking for that. We're looking for things to get simplified so that instead of managing so much of the back office stuff, we can actually concentrate on serving good food quickly and to our customers.
So tactical implementations, and I have to give a shout out to Stratix and they're an Apple partner, because when they first approached me and said, hey, we'd love for you to speak at this, I was like, I don't really know what you guys do. And then I realized, oh, this should be a standard for everyone. And this is not a plug for Stratix, but what I mean by tactical implementation is you have the tech that you have. It's already plugged in. And you have, maybe it's already running and you can add some new things and you've got a roadmap in place for how that works. But now it all ties back to exactly what we've been talking about the whole time of how do you make sure that it's working and in the hands of each and every one of your restaurants every single day, every single hour. And so there's systems out there so that you alone as the CIO, CTO, operations do not shoulder all of these responsibilities. How do you make different departments accountable? So now it's not just, oh, we've got our marketing, we've got our tech, we've got our operations. It all intermingles. And the way you do that is with support. So whether you're structuring this internally or you're coaching your restaurant operators on it or you're outsourcing, what you need to have if you have any sort of tech infrastructure at all is you need to make sure that you have support in place. And what that means is any operation, any device that your customers or your employees touch, iOS and Android, Microsoft support, you need to be able to support that in and out every single day. You need one-to-one end user support 24/7, 365. So, how many times has all of a sudden our POS system went down in the middle of a lunch rush and now you're just handing out free coupons all the time because what are you going to do? There's no one to fix it. Or all of a sudden we're at a restaurant and 3 of our, kiosks are down. And so now the wait staff is overrun and it's giving a bad customer experience. Who are they calling? Are they calling you? Especially if it's, a 9 p.m. shift, are they calling you or are you off the clock? Who are they calling? And then what about mass onboarding? If have multiple restaurants and you're saying, hey, we're going to implement a new tech, but we're only going to do it restaurant by restaurant because that's all we can manage. Well, I can tell you what, restaurant A talks to restaurant D and they're going to be like, ooh, why are they the favorites? This sucks. So, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, we're going to onboard them all. And then it's just a cluster. What does that onboarding look like for any new technology that you are going to implement? And it simply cannot be deployment from the top down. It's not going to disseminate well. It's like a game of telephone. And so by the time it gets to your employees, by the time it gets in the hands of your customers, is it broken? Is it fractured? Is it doing what you thought it would do when you bought it in the vendor section next door? Probably more times than not, it's not. And so again, you definitely need end user tactical support and you need foreign language support. That's a lot of times that's what people neglect to realize is that you need to have support for your customers that expand multiple demographics. And so lastly, it's the accountability. So again, there's layering here. So how do you prioritize how to make this happen? And you do that by aligning needs with your brand and the requirements that it has to have. For franchises, you have different requirements than maybe a privately owned restaurant group. So when you look at that and you say, okay, where are we losing the most money? What do our data points say? Is it people coming to our app or walking in our restaurant and then they're leaving because the wait times are too long? Is the drive-through line too long? Is the ticket size too small that it's just simply not covering the labor costs we have? You really need to break that down and say, okay, so now we're going to talk about the drive-through. Where does the drive-through live? Where does the tech live? And from the top all the way down to the person receiving, like myself, those chicken nuggets through the window, where can we streamline that? And, customization is key. Like I said before, there is no one-size-fits-all solution. There's just never going to be. So if you're out there thinking, I just need to find this one piece of tech and it's going to work perfect, or, you're wooed by some salespeople that say we're going to 2x your AUV, that's not possible, because the only way it's possible for you to increase your AUV is for people who know your brand in and out. And there's no one better than you, your employees, and your restaurant GMs. And then offloading that tech burden, you shouldn't have to do it all yourself. And it simply shouldn't, again, be a top level. Here's our new POS. Here you go. Who needs to own each and every part of that so that every single piece can continuously be optimized throughout your time? So whether trends are up or trends are down, who can you go to instead of, you're the CTO and you're going down, down the chain. And at the end of the day, people are saying, oh no, well, it's in there and it's working. What's working? Because you're saying the tech's working and we're still losing money. So you need to peel it apart piece by piece and pass that accountability forward. So now you're not only looking at, does it work? Does it not? Is it marketing's fault? Is it sales' fault? Do our owners suck? No, there's pieces of the puzzle that outgrow one another. And your restaurants, they're all going to have different lifestyles and they're going to have different needs at different times. And if you're not aware of that, you are constantly going to be ousted by your competitor. Or quite frankly, you're just going to be up against the fact that you're in a failing restaurant business because you are unable to optimize and enhance your numbers.
I think, a lot of what we do in our business is teamwork, right? We're cross-training our employees. We're trying to get the food out the door to our customer fresh, hot, and fast. When something goes wrong, if we have a one-stop shop to call, or at least the things that are supposed to be integrated are easily, you can find who's accountable right away, even if you can't do, if credit cards are separate from POS, or, you have your kitchen equipment is obviously a different vendor. But we've had, instances in our own brand. I can tell you for the last 8 years, I have a few stores whose credit card deposits do not match what our POS says is supposed to be deposited at the end of the month. And I've called several times. Almost every year I get a new college intern in the summer and I say, this is your project. Your project is to figure out why these are not matching. Because we call the credit card processor and then they say, no, it's your credit card machine. No, it's your POS. And we kind of call 3 different places and we never can figure out who it is. So when you look at technology and running your business, if you can try to consolidate them into as many small bits as you can to make it easier on your operator to fix the problem, it'll go a long way in terms of saving time and being more profitable, because time is money in our business.
So now we're going to break out into groups. So whatever table you're at. And initially when we didn't realize I was going to talk way too long, is we were going to have you discuss some systems front, middle, and back of the house, but we're just going to combine it at once. So I want you guys to think about your restaurants right now. If you walked in right now, what are some things that you would love technology to solve, from the customer experience, whether it's an app, whether it's, they walk into your stores, that it could fix? What about the middle of the house for your employees? Talk to each other. What are they using? What could you fix? And then the back of the house. Are there simple fixes? Are there more complex fixes? that you would like to see solved, and then we'll come back in about 8 or 9 minutes and discuss kind of some of our collective findings, and then we'll close you out and get you back to Vegas. Go. Introduce yourselves too. All right, we have 5 minutes, so we will have you wrap up your conversations. That never works. We'll get our mom voices out. Quiet. Does anyone want to share some of their problems or solutions that they came up with? Feel free to raise your hand, and we've got mics coming around. Please don't ask me anything difficult.
Hi, this is the Doug, Achilles, Amanda table. And if I go first, I steal everybody's thunder. I don't get there repeating everybody. So
man of my own heart.
We did the front of house. The guest shows up. Things that we'd like to see. We threw down 3 things. Line busting, possible more mobile ordering to help move things along. A tailored experience, geofencing, so we know the guests, we know who's coming in, and can tailor the experience to really meet their needs. And slipstreaming, having some form of guidance for, are you takeout, are you dine in, and guiding them in the door so that they feel comfortable, not just standing there looking all around trying to figure it all out. So that's the front of house side. Back of house, middle house, we like to say, let's remove the paper. Let's go to paperless all the way, from the recipes to the tickets to the KDS to the whole thing. Let's make this thing really move and smooth. And as far as the employee interface, being able to have a communications tool that lets employees truly communicate what's going on in their lives. If they're needing to take time off, they're sick, they can communicate quickly via an app that communicates with all the employees. They get their schedule right away, don't miss out. Doing onboarding electronically, and of course guaranteeing the accuracy of orders from the backside so it hits the front of the house correctly and makes guests happy. But that's just our short list. So
I love that. And I would even go a step further where Cracker Barrel has implemented games in the line where there's QR codes around that as they're waiting in line, they can now, do some QR code stuff, play some games, get some points. So that's even like enhancing that customer experience even more. And then your point of, weren't they taking your team members take pictures on the iPads now, and they leave images for the next shift coming in. So use it for culture purposes too. We know that it's going to do its data purpose. It's going to do its training and its ops. How does that also play into employee culture?
We talked about the macroeconomics. We have rising minimum wage. We have rising operation costs. We have a shrinking customer wallet. And so you've got a meaningful threat to the restaurant business model at large. And when we talk about technology then being that factor to kind of drive efficiencies, we kind of discussed the urgent need for actually disruption to happen sooner rather than later, that there's really not as much time to kind of just keep doing business as usual, that there's meaningful problems that need to be solved. And so we were thinking like Maslow's hierarchy need. If your survival is threatened, then a lot of these aspirations for the unreasonable hospitality, in some cases, need to take a back seat to just how do we run the business in a way that can maintain and optimize profitability.
I would agree. And, we talked to, I forget his name, but he works with Steven Star Restaurants. And he said, some of our restaurants span from low cost to very, very top echelon. How do we guide our customers through that journey where they may start at one price point and revenue level and then, income, and then eventually transfer up to the upper ones. So, what does that look like for each individual customer, so that you're keeping them, that their wallets are shrinking, but when they grow, when trends flux, that they're continuing to come back and travel with you and grow with you. That's, something to think about as well.
I saw something yesterday that was really exciting as an operator because, as you said, labor costs are going up. And so we're trying to run our restaurant the same, but with less people. And at the same time, I keep telling my people, don't forget the upsell. If they have 10 cents, 25 cents, to add a shot of cherry into their drink, I want it. I want the quarter, right? Because everything is small cents. And, and they're telling me, we don't have time to keep taking the orders and upselling like how we used to. We used to upsell and we used to have competitions in there, where we listen on the mic how much they could upsell them, and do you want to add cheese, jalapenos, chili, everything you can think of onto your burger, and then we would cheer about how much we upsell the customer. And they don't have time to do that anymore because they are on the switchboard, but they're also making the drinks, they're also collecting money out of the drive-through window. And yesterday I saw something which is really cool, technology-wise, with AI, that it was almost like how you talk to your phone, how you talk to Siri. And, Siri, can you schedule me an alarm for tomorrow at 2:50? And it was the same thing. It was, the customer's putting in an order, and then AI was automatically upselling, which I thought was great because we're now able to save on labor and we're able to harness technology into increasing our sales.
And I know we're out of time, but I just want to make one more comment on AI. I think that's it's a hot point right now. It's within everything, but I think that the truth of the matter is, and I work on a marketing front mostly, is that a lot of what it is still beta testing, and it's still not secure and it's not safe. So there's a lot of hesitancy to pull that back. AI also means something different to everyone. Does it mean robots are running your business? Does it mean that your menu is optimized with ChatGPT? I'm not sure. But I just want to make a note that AI is exactly what you want it to be. It's efficiencies run with artificial technology. So whether that is a prompt that is helping with an upsell, or it truly is, maybe it's a kiosk that has a Siri and it takes its own order. AI has to fit into what your brand is, what your operations are. You cannot put a blanket AI tech in and then think, oh, I no longer need 5 people in my restaurant. I'm only going to need 2. That's not how it's going to work. And it's also not at the level yet where it's safe and proven enough to do that. So as you're starting to hit the big topics on AI, I want you to take into account that you should start small. You should start where the biggest inefficiencies are and then grow from there. So I think that is all we have time for. Definitely download that QR code. That is Stratic's definitive guide to implementing technology in your restaurant.